Year 65. It's really an amazing day, and it's my pleasure to be here and have a conversation with all of you about embracing the digital age journey. I think primarily there are a couple of thought processes that I wanted to share on this live session. And those thought processes are number one, on my journey, what was really the inspiration behind starting Copper Digital, now Copper Digital, what started as Copper Mobile. And then secondly, I want to talk to you about why we changed the name from Copper Mobile to Copper Digital, discuss that journey, and then maybe even talk about some of the challenges, some of the opportunities in this day and age. So without further ado, let's get started. So number one, I would say that why and what inspired me to start this company. Why did I start a dev shop? Why did I start a company that provides these technology services for numerous clients? So for that, we have to kind of step back in time. I grew up in New Delhi, India, and growing up, I always wanted to be a preacher, always wanted to talk with people and understand what are some of the problems that they're facing and just try to solve those problems with them. So keeping that in mind, I also had this desire always to go abroad and whatever way possible, whether I would go for studies or if I would get an opportunity to get a job, I just wanted to make sure somehow I go abroad. So that's what I pursued my career in. I got my engineering degree, and after my engineering degree, I went ahead and applied for GRE. I took the test, and then I applied for 3 different universities. I remember UT Austin, Georgia Tech, and NYU, and I didn't get in anywhere initially, and it was like every day was just waiting for that. Then it used to be called I-20, and I was like, what's the challenge? And I would even make the call to the admissions office every other day, and they were even sick and tired of me. And then finally I got rejected from UT Austin, and then I got rejected from Georgia Tech as well. But I got accepted at NYU. I had later on, as an afterthought, also applied at Texas A&M, and then later on I got accepted there as well. So I started my journey with coming to NYU. First, it was NYU Poly, and once I came to the United States, I started noticing how everything was just so different. And that was an initial inspiration for me to just observe and see, wow, this works like this in India, and here it is completely different. How are things so organized? Why can't we have this in New Delhi, India? Why can't we have this in India? And I remember for the first few years, I would just always wonder about that. So once I finished my master's degree, I got myself a job at Fujitsu Network Communications. And that's where I learned a lot of the processes on how these larger companies work. And then I remember there was this all hands meeting when I got this inspiration, when the CTO of the company came on the stage and started talking about the company numbers and the results and the vision. I was like, wow, I want to be there someday. I want to be able to talk to people. I want to build that community. And then I decided to get an MBA. And that's when I got into UT Austin. So they didn't accept me for an engineering degree, for a master's in electrical engineering, but they accepted me for MBA. And perhaps by then I had a little bit of experience and the interview went really well. So I got my MBA degree then. When in 2008 I graduated, I looked at the different options that I had. Of course, because Fujitsu had paid for my MBA, I wanted to be loyal to the company, and I applied for a business product manager initially. But then due to some immigration concerns and because my green card was filed as a technical worker and this was supposed to be not a technical job, I was told that I cannot accept that and I would have to be a software engineer. And I was determined. Now that I got my MBA, I want to use my skills. I remember that anything that we would learn, let's say any influence principle that we would learn, I would go to my manager and say, you know what, we should use this in our team as well. We should communicate this way. We should, apply this principle. And he was like, Arvind, just get your, bugs fixed in your software. I was working in the software download division. And that was really fun, but it didn't give me an opportunity to make mistakes and try a lot of things because, of course, there was a lot of responsibility that was there for a large company with the kind of quality that Fujitsu had. So with that said, I decided to not initially just get started and start a company, but I decided to go ahead and join a startup. And even though the salary wasn't huge there, but I thought this is going to be a great learning opportunity. And I became the regional manager for a Chennai-based dev shop. And that's where I really understood what it takes to be a digital transformation expert, to be a part of a dev shop. And I was the only sales guy besides the CEO's network. And the task was just go, kill, catch, eat type of a model, where the task was go ahead and get us projects. And I know that for the first few months, we didn't get any projects. And I tried different things. I was like, okay, well, what can we try? I mean, even websites like Craigslist, I would post an ad and be like, hey, if there's a website development project, if there may be a project related to any Excel sheet automation, I mean, whatever it is that was needed, we would get it done for you. And there wasn't any specific budget. So I remember the very first few deals that I closed were like just $1,200. And that was very exciting. And that was very exciting for me at that time. And I remember then we got some momentum. And at that time, mobile became a thing. And iPhone app development really became a thing. So then I really practiced hard to come up with a good way to communicate with potential prospects about what it is that we're selling and why we were the experts in this and how we were really ahead of the curve in creating these mobile applications. And at that time, the job was just to convince that if you give us this mobile app development project, then we would be able to get it done. So that was that initially and working with that team, but they also had other areas where they were driving innovation. And at that time, I wasn't able to use a lot of, again, the ideas that I had. Some of them were shut down. And for someone like me who, is very adamant, I wanted to really ensure that I get this opportunity to make a lot of mistakes and try things that haven't been done before. So with that thought process, I was very scared as well. I was like, gosh, what do you mean? Like, I didn't even have a green card. And how could I just go ahead and start a company? I mean, but I spoke with my brother and I called him, I still remember. And he was like, what do you think? How much can we make? And I was like, well, maybe we can make like $100,000. I was like, okay, then great. Let's get started, quit and get started. And that's the significance that tomorrow, July 13th, is the day when we actually incorporated the company. And initially when we incorporated, the company was called Copper Mobile. And the idea behind that was that everything you could do on copper communication, we wanted to bring it to mobile. So with that story and a lot of energy, we were like, let's get started, let's do this. And that's how I started the company. And I initially when I started the company, there was a customer that I got who was just inquiring about an iPhone app development. He wasn't really like the end customer, he was a broker. And I remember when I met him at Starbucks, we hit it off. And then at the end of that very long meeting, I invited him over to the office, which I got an office, like a sublease of a business that was going under. I was like, okay, well, I'll take this office. And it looked like an office. And that was really fascinating because initially when you're starting the company, you just really want to make sure that, yes, do you look like a company? Are you a real company? And at that time, I just wanted to get whatever validation I could get, from the look and feel of the company, from having some customers, from having a logo. I remember that my brother initially designed the logo, and then eventually, we came up with the logo that we have, or the logo that we had earlier, and then we changed it again. So at that time, we were just working really, really hard. We were just burning the midnight oil. I mean, if we got an opportunity to present a proposal, we were so aggressive. We're like, we'll get it done by tomorrow. And we'd all of us stay up all night and just try to get the proposal done. We would read through the requirements, like every single word. We'd be like, no, let's see, how do we address this specific point? How do we address that point? How do we make sure that we step in the shoes of that prospect? And if I were the prospect, would I buy from myself? And those were the kinds of ideas that I feel like helped us go through those initial very challenging times. But then we signed our first deal. I remember it was ZebraWare. It was an app for a coach, a football coach, just for the younger kids, where they wanted to be able to, instead of using an Excel sheet, be organized in an application. And that we sold for $2,200, and then we became an app company, and that was the beginning of Copper Mobile. So that's how the journey started, but I think we could segue into how and why from Copper Mobile we transformed into Copper Digital, who we are today. So initially the idea was, hey, you need an app, we've got it. Because at that time, that industry was booming. There were so many different companies. I remember lots of different competitors, and there were the special people who would have experience in launching an app and creating an app. So once we got started as an app development company, we saw that there was so much competition. There were like so many different companies that were out there, and we wanted to really differentiate ourselves. And that's when we thought that, okay, we want to do apps that make business sense. So that kind of became our motto, like Copper Mobile, apps that make business sense. So we focused on enterprise applications, and we really focused on solving problems using these apps. So I remember that we had a lot of advisors that we had recruited, because at that time we just wanted to get the word out. We wanted to reach out to people and say, hey, we are a startup and we just started, and we've got all these new companies that we are working with, and we're creating these apps. So would you want to be an advisor on our board? And more often than not, people would say yes. And then we would step it up. We would go to the CIO of Texas Instruments and the person who was responsible and the CMO for Samsung, and we would just reach out to them, and they would say, oh, this is a cool story, and who doesn't want to be associated with young 25-year-old CEO with a lot of passion, and who can just talk really big things. So everybody was very receptive to that idea and becoming an advisor. And we had a board of directors, we had a board of advisors, and from there they would broker meetings for us. They would get the word out, and that got us a really, that got us into a really good position at that time. So with that, we also had somebody who came on the board who gave us a really good advice, and that person, his name is George Michael, and he told us, listen, you want to be selling solutions and not apps. And I was like, that makes sense. And then I would do some more research, and most really amazing companies were selling like that complete solution and not just apps. So that was one piece of it. And then secondly, enterprise focus was another sort of a paradigm shift when we were able to separate ourselves from the rest of the companies, because most people were focused on working on apps that were primarily for the consumer market, like this funny text application or funny cat sounds application. I mean, those are the kinds of apps that everybody was focused on, because obviously whenever there is something new, then you focus on the consumer market first to get a lot of data so you can run those experiments and get that iteration. But eventually then we saw that the opportunity was huge and nobody was really there in the enterprise space. So we came to that space with a mindset that we want to build these solutions that are business to business or business to employee. How could we help organizations be more efficient and increase revenue and reduce cost by using mobile apps? So we did that for many, many years, and we got really lucky because at that time, everybody wanted to talk to app developers. And we got an opportunity to work with Cisco, Visa, Verizon, US Army, Department of Homeland Security. We worked with Canon and eventually then SiriusXM. And all of those projects were primarily focused on apps. But when we had passed that 10-year mark, there was a little bit of that desire to have a step paradigm shift again. And we had been doing this for a very long time, and yes, the company was very profitable, and yes, it had a lot of flexibility. We could choose our clients, we could verticalize the business, and those were really good things. But we still thought that there was something missing, and we were very ambitious, and we saw that what would make sense would be that as a company, we want to be solving problems. We just don't want to give solutions. We want to solve problems. So whatever the problem is, we want to come up with a solution to that problem. So what we thought was, let's get into a lot of different conversations with CEOs, CMOs, and CTOs, people who are responsible for marketing and technology or the vision of the company, and just try to listen to them and try to understand, hey, what are some of the problems that you're facing in your business? Or what is it that if you would have access to, then you could also have that transformation in your business? And at that time, having those conversations, tens of thousands of those conversations that led to 1,100 plus business projects that we were able to deliver. At that time, we saw that a lot of the problems were not just solved by apps. This required a complete solution. What does that mean? That means that app was just a component of it. What about the data that needed to be accessed? That data was in the cloud. And what if the company doesn't have the cloud? Then we had the expertise to also set up cloud services for that company and help them in completely transitioning away from data that was maybe in-house, and just creating a lot of different new processes that were included in a lot of the emerging technologies that were there. So what were the logical points? So mobile app, we already had the expertise. We extended ourselves to also integrate with IoT. So we had built that expertise. We had built the cloud and DevOps expertise. And then, of course, we know in November of last year when ChatGPT came, at that time, data analytics, ML, AI just completely became the new thing. So 2010, the mobile revolution, and then 2022 became sort of the data analytics revolution. And at that time, we saw this opportunity to rebrand ourselves, to not just be a company that would be associated with doing mobile apps, but instead be a digital transformation company. So we solve problems using innovative transformation solutions. And we do a lot of digital transformation, but we're agnostic of how we would solve the problem and what technologies would be used. But there are 4 key components to the digital transformation projects that we take. So it could be a component of mobile and web, of course. That's, something that we've been doing for now 13 years tomorrow. And there was a component for IoT, which is Internet of Things. And that's, of course, a field that helps not just manufacturing, which is one of our favorite verticals, but a lot of other different sectors as well. So that was another one. And then data analytics, so we could utilize the power of ML and AI and the generative capability that now became available and how we could use that. So that was very, very important for us. And then last but not least, of course, connecting it all together and putting it in the cloud was cloud and DevOps capability. So that's how we got these 4 pillars, and that's how we became copper digital because we didn't want to send that message to our existing customers and the prospects that, hey, we are Copper Mobile, so we just do mobile applications. No, we are problem solvers. We love emerging technologies. We are passionate about it, and we are digital transformation experts. And we would do whatever it takes to solve your problems using technology. And that was really, really important. So that was our journey and the transition from Copper Mobile to Copper Digital. My team put together a few questions that came in from some people. So I'm going to just try to see if there may be some questions here that we could take. Looking ahead, what are the plans and aspirations of Copper Digital as it continues to evolve and thrive in the digital age? I think, right now in 2023, this is unprecedented. The technologies that have become so powerful, and we are at an intersection where utilizing these technologies can transform businesses and create new market leaders in all these different industries. So what we want to be able to do is be there for our customers, be there for our future customers, the prospects that are there, and be very well versed and have the best experience and the best intention, and combine the technology expertise that we have and continue to obviously learn new technologies, continue to deploy different prototypes, but at the same time bring the right mindset to the problems that we want to solve, to ensure that we are able to come up with solutions that are long term. So what does that mean by right mindset? Right mindset is being able to iterate, being able to accept that we do not have all the answers, but look for data to give us the answers. To be able to say that we're going to be running a pilot, and whatever the results are, we would then be able to use those results and then use our team to go ahead and run the version 2 and version 3, and then continue that process, rinse, repeat, and continue to learn, iterate, and grow as a product or as an initiative to then be able to solve that problem. So all of that is, very much the methodology of lean startup as well. I feel like that's the way, that's the mindset that's required in any type of problem solving. When we accept that we don't have all the answers, we do have a hypothesis, we want to go ahead and run an experiment, we want to create an MVP, and then from there, we want to understand what is the data telling us. Is this problem being solved? Are we closer to solving that problem? And if not, then what are the different options that we can try? So that's why in our process, when we're engaging with a customer, we're almost immediately doing a mini discovery. So there's an introduction meeting as we're planting those seeds with lots of prospects and raising our hand and be like, hey, we're here whenever the opportunity is there. We would love to interact with you. We would love to have some conversations, compare some notes, and see what are you thinking and what are your priorities and what are we seeing other customers do, what are we seeing others in similar industries and very different industries as well. How are they solving perhaps some similar problems or very different problems? And I think those conversations are really the fuel. Those conversations help us to come up with ideas, and then from those ideas, there may be a hypothesis that we feel like it's worth investing in. The customer wants to pay for it, and we carve out a project plan. And all these should be really short engagements, 3 to 6 months. Come up with a hypothesis, solve that problem, and then from there, of course, most of our customers stay with us for many, many years. We have customers that have been with us for 7 years, for 5 years, for 10 years. And that's how these engagements would go. But at the same time, we have to have that mindset of creating an MVP and running an experiment so that we can get that data and we're able to fail fast. We're able to run that experiment very, very quickly. So that was a long-winded answer for that question. Like, what are we looking at as a future? So as a future, we want to continue to plant those seeds, We want to upgrade our skills and be there for our customers, solve the problems, not just use technology, but have the right mindset to solve these problems and educate our customers whenever needed, wherever needed. Okay, so let's take a fun question. How do you balance work-life commitments and maintain overall well-being? That's a good one. So, for me, I feel like I'm really lucky because I have got an amazing team. And when I say that, I'm just not saying it for the sake of it. I have some of the best people who have decided to invest their valuable time into the growth of the company. I mean from my center of excellence leads to my CEO of North America, to of course a lot of the lead engineers. They are just so amazing that I am able to have some really peaks and valleys in the way that I work. And everybody's different, but for me, work-life balance means that I'm able to work really hard for a duration and then just completely be able to take my foot off the pedal and rely on some of my team members to take the best decisions. So what I do is I would have 3 to 6 months of period when I'm starting some new strategy. So as an example, 5 months in 2022, I was in our India office and I was putting in 14 hours a day. I even got myself a room at a hotel right next to our office. And the only thing I would do is show up at the office first thing in the morning before anyone else arrives and do some journaling, of course, meditate, go to the gym, do some journaling, and then be able to communicate with the team and set that right culture and share my vision with them and continue to do lots of interviews so I can get the people who I feel like are aligned with the vision that we have, and then just do that over and over again, including the weekends. And again, that's not something that would necessarily be qualified as a work-life balance, but I feel like that just works best for me. That's how I'm built. So I did that for 5 months, and then I left and I went to the U.S. for a short trip. And then, of course, because of the amazing team that I have, they allow me to be on more fun assignments. So I'm in Dublin right now, and I think summers, I feel like I have to be in Europe while I can forge new partnerships and scout different places for our future development centers. But at the same time, take a few days to go on a day trip, as an example, to Zakopane, that's in Poland at the border of Slovakia, that I was able to do, and a lot of other fun places too. I was able to go for the weekend to Malta for a party. I was able to stay in London, in Westminster, and get myself an Airbnb and just work from there. So thank you again to the team at this 13th anniversary. I want to thank all of you who are able to be there when I am not available right there at the office. So I really appreciate that, and that's how I think I strike that balance, that go ahead and have those summers that I can work remotely and perhaps work less, but then I could have the winter time, the hibernation time, when I'm just extremely focused and go to the office. And it doesn't have to be summer or winter, but it could be whatever works for you. And I think I've seen that for a lot of my colleagues, what works is that have that clarity by doing meditation, have that clarity on what are the tasks that are most important to work on, and not just focus on every single tiny task, but just delegate the rest of it and just work on the few very, very important things that you want to get done right. Okay, great. Let's see here. The next question that we have is, what role do networking and building connections play in your profession? That's a good one, because I feel like networking is everything. However, genuine networking is key to success. What that means is having that genuine curiosity about the person that you're networking with, and almost being like this concierge where you are listening to the person and just asking them those genuine questions. Okay, and then what happened? And then, oh, how do you do this? Or how do you handle this type of problem? Do you manage all of this through Excel sheets? Are you having, I mean, if you are just genuinely curious about the questions while you're networking with somebody, it's going to take you places because they can see it, and then you have an opportunity to build that genuine connection. And then, of course, by asking those questions, you could have that great conversation. And for me, I feel like it's all about planting seeds. It's all about just going out there and sharing all of your thoughts with people, and trying to listen to what are their challenges, and genuinely just being able to share your experiences. You may have solved that problem in the past. You may have seen someone else solve that problem. Instead of like retrofitting your services, your solutions, just genuinely give them advice. And that's when you'll build that connection, and people are going to be like, whoa, you know what? That was a great conversation. And I want to be, then you're going to be top of mind. And, then that person's going to be like, hey, I want to continue to stay in touch with him. And then wherever they go, whether at that company that they're at or at their next job, they would remember you, that you were genuine and you actually helped them solve that problem. And I think that would take you places. So yes, networking is extremely important. Building connections is a natural process where you just go around in your life and you keep planting those seeds. I mean, yesterday I met somebody, our customer for SiriusXM, and they gave us over $10 million of business. And that's why it was really, he's not with that company anymore, Thomas, but I just saw him on one of the bridges on the River Liffey, just crossing with his daughter. And I was like, hey, and that was great because I was genuinely excited, and so was he. And I didn't ask for, hey, this new company, do you want us to give you these services? No, just, plant seed, just network and just genuinely be excited. And so it was really fun just being able to do that with him. Okay, let's take one more question and then we'll start to wrap up here. Can you share any valuable lessons that you've learned throughout your career? I mean, there are obviously so many lessons, right? Let me take a stab at it. I think one lesson that I've learned is communication is really, really important. So being able to communicate your ideas succinctly, being able to, talk about whatever your thoughts are in a way that you are not coming across as prescriptive or you're not offending anybody is extremely important. So for that, there's an amazing book that I read, Crucial Conversations. And that book talks about how in any conversation you could create this safety. You could have certain words that could help the other person open up. And that happens when you create that space for someone to actually share, instead of being this investigator and you're just asking all the time, hey, what about this, what about that? No, just be genuine about it and create that space for the other person to share. And what you could do is like share yourself. So I think overall communication is that umbrella that is the advice that I would give. For like those are going to be important lessons. To be really good in communication, to read a lot of books about communication. I mean, that's what works for me. I'm reading this other book, Think Again, from Adam Grant. It's a wonderful book. And the thought process around that book is that every now and then you have information that changes about whatever your belief system is. So you got to think again. Meaning you already know that, hey, you're very sure that this is how something should be. However, if there is new information that's made available, then you have to just completely, whatever it is that you're sure about, forget it for some time and say, no, let me think again. I mean, and I'm not doing a good job of articulating that, and that's not all of that book, but this is definitely a concept that helped me, and I just really enjoyed reading that book. And what I do is I read whatever that book is like multiple times, because the first time it's very difficult to grasp everything. So I'm reading it right now, second time. Okay, great. Well, thank you everyone for attending this live session. I really appreciate it. And this was, the first one of many that we're planning to do. And this is going to be lots of fun, where we would have some really important insights that would be helpful for our audience and for our future customers, for our employees, for people who aspire to create companies and be an entrepreneur. So all of that audience is really welcome to be here and subscribe to the channel, so we can go ahead and get some valuable content. So thank you very much. Signing off here, and until next time, goodbye.